It's still dark o'clock.
Gotta get that dirty bean water, make me go fast.
One thing that we all have in common in our journey toward Jesus that has led us to move to Cambodia is the impact Bob Goff has had on our lives. Some of us have heard him speak at different conferences or read his books, but he has this way of communicating simple truths from the Bible that will for sure have you laughing, crying, and looking to follow Jesus in a fresh way. If you're looking for books that will challenge you to greater faith and to live a life of whimsy, you need to read Love Does and Everybody Always.
Good morning.
I waited all morning for this churro.
And she got it! Bob Goff has encouraged my faith in so many ways. It's hard to describe the kind of encouragement that I have gotten from his books and what he's taught me. But I would have to say it's to live with less fear. Live with less fear. Don't be afraid to do what God is calling you to do, even when it seems absolutely crazy. Don't be afraid to be the person that you are or that Jesus Christ has made you. From his whimsy, crazy antics of like carrying a bucket to the reason he wears the baseball cap that he wears, to how he loves Sweet Maria, to getting into law school. Just there's so many countless stories, and I don't want to give them away because I would really like to encourage you to read Love Does and Everybody Always. I would have to say a story that really impacted me was at the end of Everybody Always, when Bob has gone to Uganda and found one judge who would put on trial or try one of the witch doctors or a couple of the witch doctors who were doing these heinous acts on children, killing, mutilating, and ultimately it was the first time that they had been brought to justice and that there was this turning in the country. Bob just didn't send him to jail or these witch doctors to jail, but he also then came alongside them and didn't give up on them and loved them, truly loved them like Jesus would have loved them, continuing to go and see them to the point where they gave their life to Jesus. And not only that, but they were preaching and baptizing in the name of Jesus because they saw how Bob loved them, even though he's the one that brought them to trial. He's the one that got them convicted. And that's all because what love does, what Jesus tells us how to love.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
So that day, right, getting up at 3:30 a.m., going on an airplane, which I had vowed to never do. But then when this girl who I was like, I really want to be her friend, a couple months ago goes, hey, you want to go to Disneyland for my birthday? I'm just like, yeah, we could fly there because like my husband has airplane points and like it doesn't cost money. So being terrified, getting to Disneyland, being at California Adventures, right? But then the whole time everyone's kind of like checking their watch.
It's Bob time.
Right. The whole time we just knew like, what, did I tweet him or I Facebooked Like,
You Facebooked him.
just a little something, like he probably didn't even read it, but just like, can we meet in your office?
2 p.m.
2 p.m. in your office?
So we get to the island. We get to Tom Sawyer's Island.
Yes. And what time was it? It was just before 2. And I was already super tired and hurting like everyone does at Disneyland and ready for ibuprofen.
But then we walked off the barge and like a switch flipped.
And we didn't have kids with us.
No.
It was just adults. But it was full on. Like, we left them.
Yeah.
It was Jordan's mom.
Yeah.
John.
We ditched everybody and just ran through the tunnels and the little caves, and we'd pop out.
Politely moving small children
Yeah.
to the side.
Bob?
Bob? Trying to figure out what bench or
Where Bob meets.
Yeah,
people.
where his office was. Knowing that he probably wasn't going to be there, but still super stoked to just like, maybe the off chance.
Bob?
Bob?
Bob? Bob?
Right. And so if we never would have read his book, we never would have felt that whimsy. We never would have been led to Tom Sawyer, even though we're all Disney fanatics. It's just those little things, those people that God puts in your life, those encouragements to remind you. Between the two of us, we have 6.5 kids.
Yep.
But still, for her 30th birthday, we're running around Tom Sawyer's Island.
Like a bunch of little kids.
Yeah, because of the Bob.
Because of the Bob.
So thank you, Bob.
After I finished Everybody Always by Bob Goff, I got his first book, Love Does, and finished that within a couple hours. And I was just motivated by an illustration he used about Tom Sawyer's Island. He said life's kind of like Tom Sawyer's Island because everybody wants to go and everybody puts it off until the next time. And that's been me. I've always wanted to go and I've always put it off till the next time. But this is the time. I'm going this time.
I can't get enough of the Bob in the way that he really breaks down how love does good things in his life and great things in his life by loving people like Jesus did. He just leads in such a way through his stories that I wanted to know more. I just couldn't not know more about how Bob does what Bob does and how Jesus and God just really have worked in his life and how I can see that happening in mine. Probably the one story that sticks out the most in Bob's books comes from Everybody Always. He's telling a story about his son flying in an airplane, landing in the water when they got their cabin up in Alaska. Being a car guy, being an engine guy, really being into that. He really got my attention with what it's probably going to take to land a plane on the water between cliffs. And then on the way in, he allows his son to switch him seats. And his son was hesitant. And he's landed on the water before, and he's done some of these same things before, but this was way more danger, and it required him to be way more courageous to actually attempt a landing. And as Bob convinced his son to switch seats and told him, you know what you need to do. You got this. You've seen me do it a million times. You've done it yourself in different situations. I'm here for you. And I can see how God does that for us too. He's here for us. Sometimes he's silent too. There was parts of that landing in that story where Bob didn't say anything. No matter how nervous his son got, he let him know that, without a risk, without a chance to be courageous, there's going to be no growth. And that in those moments, God's going to give us what we need. And if he doesn't, there's a plan for that. As the story goes on, the plan was landed fine. And at the very end, it came to be that his son did have everything he needed, and things that he didn't, his dad was there for. Just like God's there for us. And so I think about other situations in life that seem scary, that seem really close to what I've done before, but have a new element of danger, then I'm going to have to rely on God for that.
Bob has impacted my faith through his crazy fun stories. It's really easy to listen and read all the things that he's done. Even though he's this like crazy goofy person, I never felt like I had to be like him to live how he lives, loving people like Jesus. That it doesn't matter who I am or what personality I have, but everything he does and speaks about is very encouraging to just go love people. It doesn't matter what your background is or how much knowledge you have or don't have. It's you love everybody always, just exactly how Jesus did, and you live that out in your life that you have wherever you are. Honestly, first, listening to a lot of his stories and the things that he did seemed very unattainable, and it was, some of it kind of is discouraging because you're like, wow, look at all the crazy cool things that Bob has done. Like, I am never going to do those kind of things. And one of the stories that really stuck with me is about their neighbor Carol, and she's just their neighbor. She lives next door, and they just came alongside her and they loved her on her, and she found out she had cancer, and even through that, the love that they showed to her helped her to not be afraid of what her outcome could be. And that was just really encouraging to see that he has these amazing stories and the cool things that he's done, but he's also done very simple things of just literally loving his neighbor, and that put it in a very grasping concept for me that I don't have to think of like, I can't love people if they're not just these crazy grand stories and these amazing things. It's literally love the people that are around you.
Sorry. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. We have 2 more days.
One of the main ways that Bob has impacted my faith is really to just not be afraid. I love how he says that the Bible commands us like 360 something times, be not afraid. And I just learned that fear is really the opposite of faith, because God has given us all these promises. You know, we as a group have been talking about Psalm 91 and how he will keep us from every pestilence, every sickness. Like, do we believe that? Then who cares about the coronavirus, right? And so just be not afraid. Just trust in his promises and go forward, move forward. If that's what God's calling you to do, then do it. Be not afraid. The story about landing his plane, and he was only getting 2 green lights, right? The whole idea was that if all 3 green lights were lit, then his landing gear was down and that he was ready to land. Well, he only got 2 green lights, and he kept buzzing the tower a couple times, but they couldn't tell if his landing gear was down. And he had to just, in faith, put it down, knowing that he's either going to run out of fuel up in the air and crash, or he's going to make a mess of the runway because his front landing gear is not down. And eventually, he just put it down, and the landing gear was down. And this whole thing that he was worried about was literally just a 99-cent green light that had gone out. And I think we do that in our faith sometimes. We just worry about having all of our ducks in a row, and we worry about our lives being so lined up so that every single sign has to be pointing toward what we're going to do. But sometimes God's calling us to step out in faith. Sometimes he's calling us to land the plane, even though you only have 2 green lights.